Welcome to Off Planet Radio at offplanetradio.com. I'm Randy Moggins. It's the month of June. It's getting hot. We're kind of in this like weird temporal distortion field right now where a lot of shit's hitting the fan. And our guest tonight actually is an expert at shit hitting the fan, and he's going to explain why it's hitting it, how it's hitting it, and what we can do to deflect the shit. And Emily's here to tell you all about our guest. Hey, Em, how you doing?
Good. Hi, everybody. Please excuse the strange background and my face being half in shadow. I've just moved into a new place and I'm not settled yet, so nothing is ideal, but we will have fun anyway. So let's get to it. So for many years now, our guest has been using predictive linguistics to forecast emerging global population trends and publishing the results in his very popular Alta reports. He's here tonight to help us sort through the current state of cryptocurrencies, Bluebirds, and the deepest of woo. This one is long overdue. From the aptly named half-past human Clif High, welcome to one of the wooiest podcasts on the net. Welcome to Off Planet Radio.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. It is long past due. I listen to you guys all the time.
Oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
With that, that's actually refreshing and unnerving at the same time, because I think we're kind of a mutual admiration society from a distance then. Yeah. I've been reading your reports off and on for years and watching what you're doing as well.
Well, and you know, I couldn't help it, guys. I mean, you've got a really good, solid presence there, and the grasp of the language and stuff, the nuances that the two of you guys pull out of your guests. I mean, really, really quality. Bagiago, wow. You know, I love that. That was a good one.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Excellent. Well, shit, let's, should we get right to it, or should we stroke each other's egos a little more?
No. No, you can call me a bastard now and we'll get right to it.
Absolutely not. No,
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like I said, going into this, and it is kind of, we're kind of in this weird season right now. It feels like, I'll give you an example of exactly what this feels like for me right now, Cliff. I got up from a nap in the late afternoon and looked out my window and I went, that sky is wrong. Everything about the entire vista around me felt wrong from a light standpoint. And in that moment, when you're in half dream state, you tend to like reflexively let go of your initial instincts and just kind of unwind with it. And I was like, something's moved, something's shifted, something's changed. And that's the sense that I get of the time that we're in right now. It's turbulent, it's dramatic. There's a lot of things that feel off kilter. And at the same time, it feels like we're trying to trend towards equilibrium. How does that fit into what you're seeing in the reports and in your own view of things?
Well, see, you're like a prototypical example of the kind of fellow that I would want to snatch the language from, because you're temporally aware. Now, you're actually not the kind of guy I'd like to do it because you're conscious of that awareness. So you really want to find the fellows that are unconscious and they just let it leak out, right?
Yeah.
And so there's no conscious filter. However, I really respect the fact that you're tuned into yourself enough to notice your own sense of temporal waviness. Okay, the ability to sense the nuance of time. This is the kind of thing that you find a lot of the great writers. Cat on Hot Tin Roof Guy.
Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee Williams, right. He was always after that nuance of temporal feeling, right?
Yes.
And you would also see that from the West Coast writers in the 30s and 40s.
Kurt Vonnegut Jr. was another one that kind of channeled that Gestalt.
Okay, now he was the end of that trail that I'm talking about, though, because what I want to say is that you're quite right. Something has changed. A lot of things have changed, and you're picking up on them. And what's actually going on is a sort of an echo of what happened in the 30s and the 40s. It is the weirdest temporal echo that I've ever even thought I could possibly describe, because it shouldn't exist for any rhyme or reason, yet it's here. And we find ourselves suffering a lot of the same kind of events with slightly different characters and slightly different nuances to what occurred in the 30s and 40s. We're going through the same kind of economic trash that we had then. We've got the rise of cult kind of figures that are so popular that we're reaching into the same kind of thing that occurred then. People were looking for answers then the same way they're looking for them now. There was a temporal difference that was going on that a lot of writers attempted to try and put into words and pass on to future generations. And then we hit into the 40s and 50s, and it went away. From the 50s through the 60s, there was none of this temporal awareness. The writers of the time were right glitz. They were there. All of the movies and everything were all the prima facie. What we see here now is
slice of life kind of stuff. It was very much, yeah.
So you notice the time is actually altered in terms of how we feel. Now, right. I'm a real fan of a couple of people in terms of writers. One of them is Buckminster Fuller, and the other is this guy Kozyrev. Okay, Kozyrev is like the Russian version of Buckminster Fuller, only instead of getting success, he was shoved into a gulag and isolated for most of his professional life. But the work he did when he came out was all about time, and not just about time, but also about humans being temporal antennae, if you will. And also being able to broadcast something that he tried to elucidate and to illuminate that actually can affect time. And he did all of these experiments that he proved that could be repeated over and over and over and over again by people with just the crudest kind of little circumstances. You can prove to yourself that you can actually alter time. Right there in real time, so to speak, you're altering the perception of time as it is experienced by an object or by another chunk of life. So there you go, Guy. So what you're experiencing now is our segue into this new time is that I've been harping about for years, that's being directed by these unknown energies from space. And they're slipping around the sun now because the sun's corona, its plasma, is shrunk. It's shrinking from 5,000 degrees Kelvin down to about 3,000. As it does so, all these energies slip around the sun and they're coming down and bombarding us. They've actually stripped off the top of our atmosphere in 2003. They took the top 15%. They reduced our oxygen volume on the planet significantly.
Yes.
We're going to have to stop running cars, not for the reason that the global warmists say, but because we can't afford the oxygen consumption that's going to occur, that is occurring with every car. For every minute that they're sitting there idle, it is the equivalent of 800 humans breathing along with you. You use up that much oxygen for every car we've got. So it's impacting the oxygen component of our atmosphere. And so when I was a kid in the 50s, we were looking at 21% oxygen. And you go to some places like in the ocean beaches where you'd have these oxygen-rich environments, and you might be running 23 and 24%. And now those oxygen-rich environments are down to 17 and falling. So, indeed, things are changing all around us. Your perception of light, of course, is triggered by the density of the atmosphere and how much oxygen and the other components in it. So you're picking up on all of these clues. Your eyes, your subsystem of your eyes are telling the temporal part of your brain, hey, some weird shit's going on. Pay attention. And you're picking it up, but so few people do. I actually think a lot of people are picking it up, and they've been really, really releasing it in the language, and they're not yet aware of what's going on. And this is that jittery feeling that they've got. And it's evident everywhere. And you see, touchiness in the sense of don't touch me, don't be close to me. I'm right. Explosive almost. And you just see it in people everywhere. And now, of course, the wars are starting up and so on, just as it did in the 30s. So there's no physical reason. And so far as the only people who are doing the work, the Russians, are plotting the course of the sun through space, okay? Our science is so benighted, all we care about is how we trail behind that sun. So we're concerned with the orbit of planets, not the orbit of the thing we're all following, the sun. The Russians have a team that's dedicated to that. And insofar as they've discovered, there's no reason for us to assume that we're passing through the same place in, or same density of material that we did in the 30s. But a logical explanation, which there is out there, but no one's really backing it yet, is that in the 30s, we entered some kind of, it could be thought of as a trough. And so we're skimming, our sun is pulling us across to some kind of an energy density trough. And in the 30s and 40s, we hit that one side of it, the energy changed, and now we're hitting the other side. Only all of us guys have lived in that trough all of our lives, and so we think that's normal. But really, the energies we're getting now is going to be the persistent energies for perhaps 60, 70,000 years.
Wow.
So our normal was predicated on this very narrow window of time, the 1930s through what will we say now.
Yeah.
But we're going through what would be called a rather spectacular change. It's actually turbulence. This is like, you talk about a trough, and I'm thinking waves, and I'm thinking what happens when you take a boat and you ride it up over a crest and you drop back down again. There's, you sail boats. That's exactly what it feels like.
It's right in the pit of your stomach.
Exactly. Yeah, it's wonderful. If if you're not vomiting, it's marvelous rush.
Well, also if you're aware of it,
Yeah. I have a question. Is that trough that we've been in from the 30s to now, that's also the same period of time where such a significant amount of control has been placed upon human beings. Did something about the energetics of that trough, did they, people who are the bastards that are doing this, understand that those energies in that space would allow for the kinds of things they've been doing? And now, even though this feels turbulent as we're coming out of it, what we're going to be going into will not be energies that are so conducive to their level of control.
It's a very astute observation. It's 100% correct. The degree to which they are aware of the time period that they're in at a conscious level, I can't comment on, but we can certainly find evidence that the level of manipulation was deliberately ramped up in the 20s, actually through about the late teens, 1910 onward. And so it makes a lot of sense. They knew it was coming, and one could make a supposition from some stuff that came out in the 1830s that there were groups that went through an experience in the 30s. In the 1830s, there was, like, let's say a premature wave that we hit, just a little bit of it, and it gave blossom to all kinds of things around the planet, including the utopian wave in the United States with all these utopian communities, the Shakers, the Oneida groups, all of these kind of people, right? So there was that sort of thing that was replicated again in the 30s, and now we see it again. So we can ask a couple of questions about this. Are these so related that we will then go through another 100 years and hit an even bigger wave that replicates what we're going through now, right? So if so, then right now we're looking at the creation of the cryptocurrencies, and what they are representing is a financial layer that in the 1930s was filled in by the insurance companies. It was when insurance companies and all of that financial layer basically came into existence. And so we're replicating that same energy, that same emotional tone with cryptocurrencies. So maybe if anybody's alive here among us 100 years from now, then we will see if we have the mother of all crashes as something happens to the cryptos at a giant depression level in that period. But I suspect for sure that the boundary layer that we crossed in 1930, which we know had some of the same energies as the 1830s, but was distinctly different, we're coming into the same boundary layer, but from the other side. So it is as though we were looking at a mirror held up for a passage. And so we're going to reflect all of that. And when we come out, it'll be that different world all over again.
Wow.
Now, I don't know what the hell's going on with the Mandela effect, the quantum computers impacting that, the ability of these people to start monkeying about with time and CERN, all go to your point that they know, and that they're desperate to haul us all back into their level of control. The element that may make these levels of time different may have to do with cognitive ability in some way, all right? Now, we could speculate as to the different types of cognitive ability that we might be finding ourselves running into in the future that would make it less likely they could control us. So we could speculate that, okay, we're going to have, let's just call it an awareness spread throughout humans to where they'll stop looking at their phone and look up around and examine themselves and this kind of a thing, right? We can hope that that's going to be the case, because if we look into the 1930s and stuff, there was that kind of period, like before 1910, the standard New York Times kind of a public comment section would be paragraph after paragraph of very well thought out, well structured arguments on national monetary policy, as opposed to the latest celebrity's wig, that kind of a deal that we're getting now. So I suspect that indeed there's been some kind of mental thing that's going on.
You mean Kim Kardashian's ass, basically?
Correct. Yes, exactly.
But that's interesting. In that period, we saw the establishment of the Federal Reserve System, the beginning, the rise of the fiat banking system. Whereas this is where we come into the crux of a very important issue to discuss with you. Because what we now see, having gone through the tech era and all that heralded in terms of the great promises of technology itself, obviously began with the whole Earth catalog, for God's sake. I mean, it was Stuart Brand. It was the people like that who were the rebels in the 1960s that were basically pushing the personal computer movement forward. And I'm using that largely as the icon of the technological era. We had computers before that. We, in fact, had pretty sophisticated computers before that. As far as the public's concerned, the beginning of the era of the personal computer was a liberating concept of technology based on empowering communication on an individual level. And so we've gone through late 70s, 80s, 90s. We got to the 2000s. We have the internet. The internet has taken us and foisted us onto this platform of interconnectedness. And now we're at the place where we're addressing once again this issue of how we transact business with each other on a layer that says we need to decouple from central banking. We need to find secure ways to transact business between individuals, businesses, corporations, And in the mix of all this, we now see the rise of blockchain, Bitcoin, Ethereum, probably a dozen other of these currencies that some of which I'm just starting to learn about as well. So the question now, that's what I'm given to understand. Yeah. So in all of this, we're now staring at something that the average person does not understand. I'm not even sure I understand it, which is why, we really wanted to have this conversation, because I'm a bit puzzled by the concept of Bitcoin specifically and blockchain technology in general as to how safe it is, how secure are we in it, and how much of it is now at the point we're at right now, speculation versus building something that's a solid basis for value storage.
Sure. This is you're talking to somebody right at the tech level that
Yes.
I live at, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I've been given this same kind of encapsulated understanding to a number of people recently as the cryptos have exploded. So let's examine the idea of a blockchain. Blockchain is simply a bunch of lines of text that are sent through the same cable that connects you to the web. The same cable that's allowing the video to go through at a different frequency is going to have a different protocol. The internet, the web page you see, the graphics, all of that is delivered to your computer on a protocol called hypertext markup language, right. HTML. Okay, that was invented in the 90s. It was invented at CERN of all places. And let's go back to Stuart Brand, by the way. Let's not forget that, okay?
Right.
But anyway, so the blockchain is basically a group of computer statements that are tied to each other in distinct segments, and they have little numbers that tie them together. So they are a block of code, right? And this block says we've got these 9 lines of code. We're just making up a number. It doesn't matter. It's of a specific size, and it rides on that particular layer that we'll call the Bitcoin protocol. And the because we'll just talk about Bitcoin at the moment since it was the first most popular one. This is simply this Bitcoin protocol is like HTML. It's a instruction that you just throw out onto the internet. Basically, you put it on a server, and some other server comes and requests it and passes it to a client, which is your PC. And in this case, what they're doing before they pass it to you is that the computer, the server, the node they call it, is actually reading each and every one of the lines that it's passing to you. So it's kind of like the machine interrupts your email to read it to make sure you're not getting garbage and it puts it into the spam, right? Or that whatever, for whatever reason, whatever filters you set, the machine actually has to stop and examine what you've got and decide, okay, this meets the criteria or it does not. And that's what the blockchain is doing. Now, the genius of the blockchain has to do with our favorite subject, time, okay? The blockchain cannot exist without time. What happens is that they all sync up, all the computers on the planet that are on the internet are all synced up to atomic time, where we all agree that there's this one long number and that's this millisecond. And then there's another number that's incremented by 1 and that's the next millisecond. And so once they're all doing that, once all the computers are understanding the same time, then they stamp the block. They said, oh, I got this block at this time. It's mine, it's my block. And then I'm gonna read it real fast, and then I'm gonna stamp it again, and then I'm gonna put it back out on the internet. And if it does this fast enough, because all of these nodes are trying to process that same little block of code, then it gets the reward. And so it is a miner, and as a miner, what it does is it reads that code and it makes some calculations based on it. Now, this code that it's reading is an encapsulated version of our collective ledger, our collective account. Who owes who how much, who spent what on who for how much, and this kind of thing. That ledger still is recorded. Transaction I made with Bitcoin for some alpaca socks back in 2011 or so, right? It cost me cost me like a total of 18 Bitcoin to buy socks for Christmas presents that year.
Wow.
You know, imagine the cost of those socks now. Ouch. Anyway, though, but the point is that ledger is that entry is still out there. It's still recorded in this public ledger, still being processed by these nodes, still being maintained all around the planet, so that if I ever needed to recover it, I can. It's instantly available. Now, the beauty of it is, it is identified by a string of numbers that only I can get at, my private key, and that's what keeps me secure. And so as long as I don't share this string of numbers with people, nobody can read my records on the public ledger. So it's true, it's sort of anonymous, right? You can actually track public keys and you can make certain assumptions. And if someone shows you a public key that says, hey, send me a donation here, you could sort of track how much money or Bitcoin's going there. But basically it's an anonymous system that's a secure ledger. So it's like we're all keeping track of everybody's credit card expenditures, and so that nobody can overspend the amount of Bitcoin they have. Now, the beauty of the cryptocurrencies arising at this time is twofold. It's trustless. We don't have to trust each other because we've got the blockchain that we can trust because it's being processed by all of these nodes, by the rest of the planet. So without that issue of trust, you can do business with someone and know that your transactions and everything will be above board and straightforward. The problems that we run into with some kinds of transactions are eliminated. And it can also be very speedy once we get over this particular hump with the cryptocurrencies. Now, the second aspect of this in terms of the cryptocurrencies arising at this particular point is they cannot be manipulated. Because of the way in which they arose, it wasn't really possible for the people that were controlling us from the 30s through now to be able to preload the system, so to speak, to give themselves the upper hand. This was truly a breaking out of technology when Universe decided that we all needed the help. And in helping us, it's provided us a free market that is responding to emotional reactions in a way that our manipulated markets haven't for the last 40 or 50 years. Thus, those people that have followed me and know for a fact that I'm the world's worst silver price forecaster have to acknowledge that my system actually really does work when we have an unfettered market, and I can get at those emotions because I've been spot on some really amazing ability to predict price movements within these, because I can get at the emotions because it's not a controlled market. And so the cryptocurrency is showing up now. It's a very liberating force. There's two things that most people don't recognize when they look at this. They see, you know, they're blinded by the greed, the avarice, the fear of not getting in, all of this kind of thing, or they're saying, I want to stay away from it. But a lot of people don't recognize that this truly is the global monetary reset happening right in front of our face, and that our experiment here with cryptocurrencies is the next evolution of humanity's understanding of what money means. Okay, so money in the past was something that had to be a store of value that you took along with the exchange. Here we're in the process of abstracting that even further, separating out store of value from exchange, and then piling on dynamic capability to exchange. And so it's truly starting to interact and create whole new ways of doing business, eliminating costs and making things hugely price performing at a time when we're really going to need it, because we're running into an energy wall relative to the strange energies from space, the ice age, and all these other problems that are hitting us. We need to be very efficient as a species, so we can't afford a lot of waste anymore, and the cryptocurrencies are going to get rid of all of that. Now, they're also software, so
Right.
people have to understand that, right? And so it's computers that are processing little chunks of money that is in fact just a digit, just a numeric representation. There's all kinds of nuances within the cryptocurrency space. I've been able to transfer over some of my technology to filter through all of the rising amount of verbiage that's bubbling up with all of these crypto releases, and filter out some of the good ones, and to filter out some of the bad ones as well. So to just tell people to avoid this kind of an idea and these sorts of things if you're going to be speculating. But we're at a point now where, because there is no...
Okay, and you just hit that word. You just hit that word, speculating. And this, this really, to me, is kind of, maybe it's my aversions to risk. I've looked at Bitcoin and I've watched it rise, and I've watched it, and oh my God, what is it right now? It's over $3,000 today somewhere. I saw that. But right now I posted something the other day on Facebook. This may seem rather inflammatory, but it was just one of those, just saying, guys, people remember the tulip bulb thing that happened in the 1840s with the speculation that went with tulip bulbs and how that exploded. And then all of a sudden the bottom dropped out of the market and a bunch of people lost a shitload of money. Some of them lost homes, and, you know, it was like the stock market. They spent money they didn't have on speculation. Mm-hmm. And it was a cautionary, but I write a lot of notes to myself in public. And for me, it was just kind of this, how much do we really know about where Bitcoin is going right now and why it's going there? And I approach it this way. This is a currency that's based on clock cycles inside of a computer, as you've explained. There really is not any form of intrinsic value or utilitarian value in the currency itself. Now we talk about silver and gold.
You're wrong.
Okay,
you're wrong.
Prove me wrong. Great.
Okay, so here's the thing. It's because Bitcoin is not a currency, or because it is a true currency. Okay. Gold is a monetary store. Gold cannot be a currency in our modern world. I don't know where you are physically, but I'm not able to transfer gold to you now. I'm not even able to do it electronically. The powers that be say that that's not allowed. I would have to go through the rigmarole of getting something shipped to you, and I'd have to go through insurance and all of this. Bitcoin eliminates all of that, okay? As a cryptocurrency, its intrinsic value is the encryption on our exchange, all right? In a world right now crammed full of people, what is the primary thing every human needs? Privacy. And why is this? Because as a human being, our bodies are designed to deal with 145 people in our lives, period, in our lifetime. 145 people. Whenever tribes got to the point where there were more than 145 people, more or less, they had to split up. They'd split up into two sections, and you'd go off, and then you'd build up to another 145. So humans are incredibly impressed by the sheer number of other humans and all the transactions we have to deal with them and so on. All the people you have to remember, all of the social media that you're being inundated with, all the faces, all of the computers, and so on.
Absolutely.
Okay, this removes privacy from your mind totally. Okay, and one of the things we really need these days is privacy in our individual transactions because of big, evil masses of people that have gotten together, hover around one or two psychopaths, gather all the sociopaths to them and say, we're in charge. Okay, we got to watch our ass for these people. So cryptocurrencies' inherent value is the hash, this algorithmic construct that provides a number based around what you put in as text, basically. And that number can't be cracked to retrieve your text unless you have one other number. And so you have privacy. And then there's coins that have taken this 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 levels beyond that. And so we're now breaking free of the control structure at a grassroots level. And because it is software, and because it's weird ass programmers like myself and script kiddies, you know, I mean, you may not know them, Randy. Emily,
oh no,
I'm sure
I've been in. Okay. I've worked around the tech industry for 20 years. I know. I'm not a coder, but I write database. I mean, sure. I know SQL code. I know BASIC. I know.
There you go. Then
I understand it. So.
These kids can't be stopped. Once the idea is out there, there you go, right? Yeah. And so blockchain can exist whether they try and suppress it or not. And in fact, the more it would try to be suppressed, the more it's going to blossom because we need it now, because our currency is dying. So you were talking about aversion to risk, all right? And the shooting up of it, the speculation. All right, there is speculation now, but speculation has nothing to do with economics. Speculation is an emotional condition. It entirely describes emotion. Most people think it has something to do with money, and it doesn't. You can speculate with anything and get that same emotional high. It's dopamine going through your brain at a particular level that triggers certain kinds of conditions, okay? Yeah. And so it's the same thing that gamblers get, that sort of a deal, or archers. Archers will get that same bit of speculation the moment they release. So what we're actually running into is an emotional condition that I think is coming as a result, and it's coming out so hard as a result of the 40 plus years we've been held in bondage to the current financial system. Actually going back to 1972, and then you can make the argument it actually existed prior to that, right? Yeah. We've been in bondage for that long. So as slaves, having the secret space program and all these people strip our lives of wealth that we were out there sweating and you know, and they're stripping this stuff away from us secretly. And so universe said, hey people, I like you. Humans are still around after all the shit I've thrown at you for all these millennia, and don't buy the idea, by the way, that humans have only been on this planet a few 100,000 years. So we'll back out on that idea. But the universe said, here's my bone for you. You know, if you're willing to chew on this, it's a way out. And there's a lot of us that saw this and said, that's a good bone. Let me get gnawing.
Yeah, so the way you just described that, when you were describing it, it's an actual currency, whereas metals or as a store, that actually made sense to me in a way that actually shifts some of my thinking about this. I guess for me, like my question has always been, my intuition, I think, was to like go along with like Chris Duane's line of thought that if you don't hold it, you don't own it, right? And
same exists here though. Hold your private keys. You got them in your hand, right?
Yeah. I guess I was thinking, I was thinking of it as something, I guess I always feel like what happens if for some reason we don't have the internet or we don't have it in the way that we have it, what happens to all those Bitcoins you have? But I guess for some reason, the way you just described it, they'll never, even though they like to threaten us with taking away the internet, that would take away their ability to spy and keep track of us. So they're not going to do that. And so it's actually the safest place to sort of do our thing. Yeah, it makes really good sense.
And they're putting so much energy into the internet, you wouldn't believe. Okay, I grew up in the telephony industry. As us old guys say, I came up out of the telephone industry, right? And so I was there when SS7, signal switching 7 was invented and patented and all of that. I participated in that code base. This is the stuff that causes what we call the billing and rating channel to exist. This was the digital signal that allowed our current telephone system. And its existence has been pumped by the powers that be so much that they've got a huge amount invested in it. And actually it has less to do with their spying on us and all of that than their own money issues, their own greed and so forth. They use the internet to transfer money secretly
Yeah.
and to cover up all their crimes, do their bribes secretly, all of this kind of stuff, right? When in the old days, when you could Tor back in, and I won't reveal any names or anything, or even my own at the time, but you get into some of these places in the dark web, like even before Silk Road,
Right.
and they were making contracts, and the contracts were being let with what we have to assume, what I have to assume because of the language involved, was a federal government employee. So, you know, just because there's Fed speak and there's, you know, subcontractor speak, and you get used to these language patterns.
Yes.
So they want cryptos to exist. So you're really safe with these, and hold the private keys private. Don't keep anything on the exchanges. You know, so if you want to use an exchange to buy or trade, buy your coin and then send it to your private wallet. Put that on your PC, put it on your phone, print out those little tiny numbers, and you're good. You can actually just type those numbers in and recreate the wallet when you need to. You could memorize those numbers, eat the sheet of paper, go across the border, turn around and say, "Fuck you guys."
Yeah. Okay. So all of this is predicated on a stable base of technology, a stable base of energy, and a stable power grid and telecom structure. No,
Nope.
Okay.
Sorry to.
Come on.
Okay, look. All right, here's the thing. Internet grew out of DARPA research, which was predicated on the idea of instability, okay? And their idea was you got to survive the nuclear explosion, so we need to have redundancy everywhere. Well, it turns out that when the strategists started actually looking at what was going on, all of the power companies were practicing that anyway. We don't have a national power grid. We don't have even power structures from one coast to the other. You've got frequencies that vary by whole orders of magnitude in transmission lines. That we've got balancing systems running continuously 24/7, just so the thing doesn't fall apart. And we've gotten good at that. So no, none of this is predicated on anything being stable. It's actually predicated on the reverse, that you've got people out there 24/7 keeping this thing running constantly at the software level, at the hardware level, replacing gear. And I used to be one of them. We you know, in the middle of the night, oh, God damn it, what happened? Okay, all right, I'll be down. You know, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah. So what you're telling me then is that we're not in danger of an EMP taking out the entire power grid of the North American continent in any scenario that you understand.
That's not true. There is one scenario that would cause that, and that would be a Carrington event coming from the sun, but it would take out the whole North American grid, South America probably. It would kill so many people that it wouldn't matter. So, you know, EMP is
that's encouraging.
Well, there's the rub. Really, it's a case of, you know, if the internet goes down 100% and they never brought it back up again, yeah, your Bitcoin would be kind of hard to recover, but you're going to have more serious problems than whether or not you've got Bitcoin.
And nobody else will be able to get their Bitcoin either. So it's not like some people will have it and others won't. So it's the great equalizer then. And so
yes, as creatures, we're amazingly assured of some comfort in the fact that our fellow man suffers just as much as we do.
Well, you know, here's the thing, guys. This is what makes us resilient, all right? This is what makes us anti-fragile, is that we suffer all the time. And so we try and solve that suffering. And my suffering might be different than your suffering. And if you're smart, you learn from the thing I did when your suffering resembles my suffering, that sort of a thing. And so as long as we have this attitude continuously, I think we are anti-fragile. We're still here after millennia, after huge, giant catastrophes. There was a war on this planet that I hate moving stuff. There was a war on this planet that destroyed
attention flat earthers out there.
Okay, it destroyed a band. Yeah, destroyed a band from here all across into this area. Okay, the war destroyed all of that. It destroyed all of the peninsula in here, and it burned all the way back into part of India. That war glazed over such huge amounts of area that we could say that there's a giant mass of green radioactive glass under part of the Sahara that's bigger than the continental United States. So we're still here after that.
Yeah.
So what was that war? I mean, is that some parallel to what we're led to believe was in the Velikovsky scenarios, a near flyby of Mars, or what was
no,
that?
I think a lot of these things are misinterpreted. Okay, so we're going to get into some real opinion here. So I have opinions on Hapgood. I have opinions on some of the people that think there have been pole flips. And
Mhm.
I think they're wrong. I think that they're simply misinterpreting the evidence that was there, and that we've never had a situation of the poles reversing. There's never been a magnetic flip. It's something we don't have to worry about. And in fact, what we've got is this expando Earth, and it can explain all of the conditions that creep into us thinking there's been like pole flips. All right. And so the war part of this was actually some kind of conscious entity to conscious entity war that we find reflected in the War of the Gods language and all throughout all of the Roman stuff, the Greek stuff, the Vaimani, the wars with the Mahabharata, you know, all of this kind of stuff. There's even instances of that war that is reflected all throughout the planet. And so I because I'm up in the Pacific Northwest, I'm taken with the local native legends about it. And these legends I find extend all the way down to the Maori and the Aborigine in Australia. There's a common knowledge base that goes down there, common words and everything. It's even reflected in my crow back here, okay? Because their understanding of the war was that the Earth was being dominated by the moon. And the raven, as the the expositor of the tale, was the one who was the trickster. And so the raven says basically that Changer came, and all was made different, and we are as we are now because of Changer. And Changer left, and then sometime after Changer left, Sky People came, and there was war on the Earth, okay? And Sky People fought with Star People. All right, now neither of these groups are related to Changer. Changer actually represents the Nemo, which we find examples of these all around the planet in every primitive society. These aquatic beings that are regarded as being the creators of humanity. And also they're so regarded as this that the Queen and Chucky do this little secret ceremony on a sacred rock where they pledge allegiance to their ancient, Nemo ancestor, right? Who violated their, I won't go into that anyway, though. But but the Salish here, the Salish though, and all the other indigenous people here talk about this war and how Earth was thereafter, how we were scarred, and how the war was so terrible that the flames of the war could be seen around the planet, on the other side of the planet, from the war occurring. And how they talk about all the earth changes that occurred because of the giant war that was going on, how it lasted for, there's different variants in here, but about 50 years. And so we're talking things at an atomic level. It was not a flash in the pan kind of a war, and how the response was to the fire. And so they speak elementally, right? And so the response to whoever did the fire, I forget at the moment whether it was Star People or Sky People, the response of the other group was ice. And so they destroyed them by freezing them. And so that's why we have Antarctica the way we have it now. And so so you have these legends that are all around there that get into, and it's all intricate in here, but within the symbol here is all kinds of stuff about the Earth being a prison subscribed by the orbit of the moon, how the Watchers are on the moon, how the Watchers had done battle with Nemo, how they're afraid of Nemo, Changer, and all of this other stuff in there. The Salish really, because they were relatively ignored, they all the way up to the Tlingit in Alaska and all the way out into the Maori cultures. We have a much richer, much more detailed fabric of humans' experience of what the hell was going on around us as all this shit fell down.
Yeah. Very interesting. Wow, there's a lot. There's so much there that's archetypal. That's probably steeped into our psychology, or probably our DNA. I'm thinking.
Oh, certainly our DNA. Certainly,
this is all genetically kind of programmed in us, in our emotional or psychological responses as well.
Well, look, we have the fight, flight, or freeze syndrome, right? All of these things. And so these are certainly programmed into us.
Nobody ever mentions freeze, by the way. That's interesting that you mentioned that. Yeah.
I'm a martial artist. I've seen it in action.
Sometimes the freezing is the best The best option.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Stop doing anything. Yeah. Like I often say that when you don't know what to do, sometimes the best thing to do is to not do anything for a minute. Just stop. You know what I mean? I find that often leads me to my best solution for whatever the problem is, rather than doing
the
something
still
reactive.
point.
Yeah. Get the center and then see what the hell's going on. Right.
Yeah.
But no, these things are inbuilt to us, you know. Were they crafted by Changer when they put us together out of the bits and pieces? I don't know. Has some of it evolved to since then? I don't know. I know that evolution exists because we are continually changing. I also know that humans have such a huge wide spread that we're not a sole source of origin. In other words, there were lots of different trials, you know. So you got alpha, beta, all the way to theta, omega, you know. Oh, we like this version. Let's go ahead and, you know, promote that one for a while and so on. That's really where we're at as humans. But this is our great strength, I think, right? Yeah. It's kind of like, you know, we've suffered so much. We've seen it from so many different angles, from so continuously, that we're really strong sons of bitches. We can get out there, we can take it and give it right back. Now, if we can just get our heads right as we go through this period of space and not react to the energies and kill each other, and that may be what causes great world wars. Yeah. You know, we know, for instance,
the energies.
Correct. And we know, for instance, that we went through, here's a really terrible thing to suggest, that maybe this was the cause of the great Mongol hordes sweeping through Asia and down into the Middle East and into Northern Africa. It may have been the same conditions that we're facing, because it was coincidentally in the same kind of weather conditions that were being created by Jupiter and Saturn as they tug on our orbits yet again. And this happens every 420 years. And if you go back this cycle, you find out, oh, geez, you know, it was the Maunder Minimum. Oh, geez, it was the Black Death at that time. And oh, if you go back even further, oh, it was the quote, Yellow Horde, you know, the Huns invading Europe. And if you go back further, oh, it was the great Mongol invasion that destroyed and altered Asia for centuries. So did the Mongols react not only to the climate change, but also to their condition of having to suffer the energies and so on, right? Did they become the people that were so feared that, you know, whole cities would just surrender, and the top leaders would go out to get their heads chopped off in hope that they wouldn't slaughter everybody else in the town? So, and was that caused by these energies from space? I'm hoping not. Gurdjieff and some of the other thinkers in the 1800s were quite certain that we would face this again.
Yes.
Yeah. At the very beginning of your recent report, you talk about sun disease. And since we're talking about these energies coming in and people's crazy reactions to it, can you elaborate on that for the listeners a little bit, what you're speaking about?
Sure. The sun disease, at first, it was one of the very first things I encountered in doing this work. And it was an artifact of what I was actually attempting to do at the time, which was to make money with the predictive linguistics, finding out which stocks would have an emotional edge, kind of what I do with the cryptos at the moment, right? Only I was trying to do it with stocks, not understanding that the stock market was manipulated. And so all of my results didn't make any sense. But the very first long distance run I made brought back, I was after SUN, S-U-N, which was the stock ticker for Stanford University Network, which made all kinds of computer gear and stuff, right?
Yes.
And so, and really good stuff. I loved it, you know. And so I was after that. I wanted to see how they were going to do, and that was going to be my first target. And so instead of that, I got tons of data about the sun, as in the big scary ball in the sky. And I thought, what's this doing in here? Because I'd done a whole lot of stuff to filter that out, went in and looked at it, and it was associating sun with disease and bad effects on humans over and over and over again. And it got me intrigued, you know. And the next run I did, now bear in mind that it was difficult in the beginning. I did one run in 1997, and it took me almost all of 1998 to do the data analysis because I didn't know what to throw out at the time. So it took me a long time to get to the point where I could do a run very quickly and know what to discard. And yet persistently over each and every run, year after year after year after year, was sun disease, sun disease, sun disease. And then you'd get these weird effects that it would talk about it in long distance data, the long-term values, which are from 19 months on out. It would talk about the sun disease affecting us so bad that people would be in the room, walk out onto the balcony, and keel over just that rapidly. Or somebody would be walking across the street and go into kind of like a fugue state or sort of an epileptic seizure, and they'd never had anything like that, and it was related to the sun. Someone would go out to help them, and they would also be struck, and pretty soon you'd have a whole pile of people in the middle of the street that, you know, are basically having some kind of a seizure. They're not dead, they're just totally incapacitated. When drug into a building, they recover. And so this kind of thing was described in the data sets. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe I better go check this out. I went and checked it out, and we have all these weird things in history, right? One of them is local to me. I live in Washington State. Up in the far northeast corner of our state is a county called Ponderai. Ponderai has got these caves. You can't go visit them anymore because our government has decided that it's not safe for humans to see whatever it is it's in these caves, and so they've roped it off. One of the things we know that is in the caves, first off, the caves were studied, and the estimate is that the humans lived in these caves either intermittently or continuously for almost 40,000 years. They were very conveniently situated near rivers and all of this, so it made sense that people would be cave dwellers there, right? Anyway, though, the art on the inside of the caves repeatedly shows hands with sticks with green leaves on them being stuck outside the mouth of the cave, catching on fire. Wow. And then the hand being pulling them back in. So they were basically describing you know, strange energies from space. And if you look at petroglyphs all over Hawaii, you see the descriptions of the sun being really weird and sending out lightning from the sun. And you see these shocking images in the Maori of lightning coming down and carving the earth. And the Maori, being in New Zealand, saw the blue glow of this energetic structure that carved out what may be the Grand Canyon or something, some part of it. And we're talking about, you know, ancient legends way back that are the modern Maori are basically interpreting off of petroglyphs. You know, graphics carved into stone. Now, these people, you got to think about this, right? If I want to make a graphic, it's nothing. I can draw paint, Photoshop, womp, 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 and it's done. But these people had to work months sometimes to chisel this stuff into really hard rock. They wanted us to understand that this was powerful medicine stuff here, right? One of the things that we see in the stone represented from the Maori all the way through Micronesia into Polynesia is the concept of blue. And there's various different ways they get this across in stone that is basically gray, because this is not painted or anything. It's within the glyph itself. And so they're describing these conditions that we now see start to arrive, okay? One of those was noticed and put into, I think his channel is Adapt 2030, and he talks about the coming ice age. And he happened to catch a video that shows this weird blue glow that's in this forest. Now, it could be a space alien, it could be a spaceship, it could be any number of things. But if it is a formation of plasma energy, it may certainly then be thought of as a precursor to these large lightning strikes. And they're not really strikes, it's a ionosphere to planet ground of huge amounts of electricity that are building up in the ionosphere. And we also have to remember that our ionosphere has been shrunken by these energies over these past few years. So it's a lot damn closer. This is like the Schumann resonance alteration, by the way.
Yeah. This almost sounds like Thunderbolts of the Gods by Wallace Thornhill? Book I read.
I don't think I've read that one.
Okay, so but it basically predicates certain aspects of cosmology, and I guess ancient period catastrophes as having occurred as a result of that same phenomena that you're describing there. Yeah, it's Wallace Thornhill. It's called Thunderbolts of the Gods. It was.
I have to check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I can send you a link for it. Somewhere here, I've got it on my bookshelf. But this is a recurrent kind of vestigial kind of memory that sits in us inside our DNA some ways. You're talking about this.
Yeah.
It kind of triggers certain responses in the psyche where you kind of, it's a fear response. It's a primal response.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I don't want to be contradictory to everything that people think they might know, but DNA is not as it's been described to us.
No, of course
not at all.
No.
you know, so in that sense, DNA resonates all the time. It's creating biophotons all the time. It's this reactive stuff going on. And it may indeed be our actual connection from the physical corporeal form to our memories.
Yes.
All right. So our memories may go through that. We know that the scientists have decided that there are triggers that reach into epigenetics and cause changes within us, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can be an addict and I can smoke and smoke and smoke, but I can figure out the trigger in my own head that causes me to epigenetically change so that I'm no longer an addict and I don't have to smoke anymore. Now, I could maybe, if I knew how to do it, because we are so malleable, I could maybe figure out the epigenetic trigger wherever it might be and cause melanin to grow in my skin, right? So I maybe even grow hair. Who knows?
Don't do it. Don't do it.
No. I still wasted time at this point. It's my heat sink anyway. But the point being that epigenetics is not really as we understand it. So maybe the Taoists are right. Okay, and so I know this guy, and his name's John Chang. All right, they put videos out on it. And he's this Taoist master. He's maybe one of the last of the traditional Taoist masters alive. And he can't take humans around him too much. And he's got these rules that he lives by because of the way he came up.
We struggle with them too.
Oh, yes, exactly. Yes, they're very annoying sometimes. Yeah. But his issue is, of course, that he's a true Taoist and he can do the generation of ki energy, and he can actually heal you on the spot, right? Cause your bones to knit and all this kind of stuff. You can crumple up newspaper and put it out in front of him, and he'll do this, you know, from feet away. Absolutely. And you did the newspaper, and the newspaper catches fire. He's sending his chi out there, and this causes him some effort, and it's an energy exchange. And he doesn't do these parlor tricks lightly because of that energy exchange, but he can do things like, you know, cause one point of matter to merge into another. And so individuals like this as the Taoist methodology. Okay, the Taoists discovered that basically anybody could be made like this should they have the desire to make themselves over. You cannot be turned into this, so you couldn't be made into this kind of super soldier, but you could decide that you were going to be this way and follow their precepts, and it would work. But so the very first part of that epigenetic journey is desire, which is a hormone, which is part of the will, which is part of the thinking and part of the mind. So your mind actually is ultimately in control of the epigenetics. So it's up to us to decide within awareness where we're going to put our awareness and what epigenetics we're going to trigger. And this is very difficult, okay? Very, very, very difficult. Most humans never ever change. They're on a life path and they just keep going and going and going, doing those patterns over and over again. Krishnamurti talked about it. You get to a certain point and you recognize these patterns and you start busting out of them. And it becomes truly a marvelous, amazing thing, because then once you're no longer captivated in that part of it, every moment is an amazing experience, good, bad, or indifferent. It is truly amazing. You know, I'm suffering greatly, but wow. You know,
I've actually been engaging in a practice that's something like this recently, and it is quite amazing. I don't think I have it down or I'm expert at it yet, but it's been certainly an eye-opening experience for me. So I encourage people to engage in these kinds of practices.
And also look at the thinking too that gets there. All right. Because if you acknowledge this, as modern Western science does, that epigenetics is very key to how humans behave, and that if you can trigger epigenetics, you can do everything from curing disease to causing mind changes. Then also you can think to yourself, maybe I don't have to not only do these patterns, but maybe I can explore whole new elements of what it means to interact with matter and universe. And then you start realizing, oh geez, I'm not this body. It's like, whoa. And in fact, this body, this thing that's moving around, is actually encapsulated inside of what me is, and me has absolutely no name at all. And that us foolish things here, us corporeal condensates, are giving each other labels, and we call these names. And from that point on, it becomes very, very comic. You know, the whole.
Well, I think anybody that's gone through disciplines of any level, spiritually, meditation, or even the entheogen route, at some point, if they've had an honest experience, recognizes that the separation from the identifier with the physical body, the separation from the ego, and the sense that consciousness isn't local, which is, something that people really
That's a big
struggle
shock
with.
too.
Yeah.
That's a big shock. But the idea that that's a game changer, because at that point you suddenly realize there's something a whole hell of a lot bigger out there, and it isn't local and it isn't physical. And it's what we talk about all the time, which is basically doing kind of a collapse, where you collapse down to a singularity point and then you can expand back out again consciously. And
Okay, let's stop right there for a second, because you're talking just Cozy Rev's language. Okay, because he was always talking about the collapse of potentiality and probability into reality, and how we could affect and delay that. So I mean, you're right back in line with him. So go ahead.
no, and that was really my point. My point was, so much of what I've tried to communicate over the last 8 years of doing this in some nuanced way is that you have to stop. You have to bring things down to a single point. There's a still point. I learned this when I was 15, 16 years old. I learned how to meditate, and I followed the Tao teachings. I mean, just the philosophy of it itself was liberating. But one thing that I discovered was, no matter how screwed up I was, no matter how psychologically damaged, physically damaged, whatever shit I was going through, if I did this exercise, if I just stopped and did the collapse and let things go to a singularity, I then had the ability to begin to expand back out again from a point that I had not been at the point where I had to do that stop, which you called earlier freeze. Most people never, we hear about fight and flight. Nobody brings up freeze.
Yeah.
And I think this is hugely important.
Well, what you were talking too about the consciousness and the nature of hunting for that point of collapse. Okay, look at this. Look at where we're at right at the moment. I think we are reflecting what was in the 1930s again around that idea, because in the 30s we had all of these religions springing up where people felt something. They were responding to sensations that their body had that intruded in on their consciousness that made them seek for answers. They didn't know what they were seeking. They knew they were seeking, though, and that led them to the traditional avenues that seekers normally went through. And we had religions and cults spring up all over.
Sort of like the charismatic renewal, Amy Semple McPherson, the
tent revivals. Exactly.
My dad used to tell me about the tent revivals. The guys that went, the circuit runners, that basically would set up in a dirt lot, sawdust somewhere, put up a big tent. They'd stay in town for a week, pass the hat every night. Guys would come in and throw their whiskey bottles. It was illegal at that point, obviously, but this this whole thing, the whole gestalt, the speaking in tongues, the mystical experience, all of that.
It was permitted inside the tent. See,
yes,
you could have that experience inside there. Now, over the 50s and 60s, the tents were restricted and put off into the background. We didn't want to allow that in our society. The society, the social order changed. Right. We weren't seeking anymore. We were under different influences. Now we're back there. And the 50s, 60s, 70s, we burst out again. We're coming into the new age period of time where we're still feeling that and we're still seeking that. But this time, there's no tents. And so what are we to do? We can't have those mystical out of bounds experiences that we know to be liberating, that we need at that moment just to get the energies out of us that probably drove our great ancestors to ingest psychedelics for that same purpose, because they're so cleansing of these kind of energies. And at that same time, we don't have the tents to allow us to have these experiences. And so we have the new age, and that we got to the point where it's busting out into a much larger population. There's more of us that are responsive to it, more of us feeling it. And so it's much more in your face everywhere as we're all trying to, do the stuff that should have been done in the tent and have our little revival and get that experience out and try and integrate it. Only we don't have those integrational tools anymore. And that's why all this stuff's going on. And of course, what does it lead to? It leads to the people that say, hey, what is there out there? I see a twitch. The herd is twitching. maybe I can make some money off of it. Now let's get in and, let's get digging into it there and see what we can come up with. And that's kind of stuff, I'm really an egalitarian. I'm a yogi, right? I mean, I do yoga at a core damn level. And so at a core damn level, you can't be a yogi and have pretense about who you are and the stuff that you're in, right? And so as a result of that, you don't want to see anybody else also who's in this stuff, the bodies, to be sheared. It's true, it's their own destiny. And you can take, as a yogic perspective, you can stand back and allow these people to be idiots, to be sheared by, the cults and be taken advantage of and that kind of thing. But also as a yogi, as Babaji even says, it is your choice, right? Yeah. You can decide to exit now and go forever into the infinite stream, or I'll sit here through the sun cycle and see what trouble I can cause.
So I guess all this leads us to the point where it's time to address the bluebird in the room.
Exactly, the big giant space chicken. Yeah,
I love that you call it the blue chicken. I just refer to it as the bluebirds. I refuse to use the other term, but I love that you call it the blue chicken.
Chicken cordon bleu.
Yes. Yeah. So,
well, there's a lot of questions, Do these guys lay eggs? Do they squawk?
they lay spheres, the sphere being, right?
Okay.
So, I was not surprised to see you begin to speak of some of this stuff at about almost the very similar time that we really started to speak about it. And so, and I like the way you speak about it, and you're just as pissed off as we are about this. And so, let's get into this. I mean, this is, from your perspective, like, what is this nonsense?
Let me add another layer to it and
Please.
Make the mystery even deeper, okay? Before we get into it at all, I've discovered something that a few weeks back, I didn't really know what venue I was going to bring it out. This is a perfect venue for it, because I think there's an even greater level of conspiracy going on around the big blue space chickens, all right? Yeah. And I noticed this from a techie viewpoint. If you go and do a search on YouTube, and you go to YouTube and you just pop on in and you put up in the search in there, you put in Corey Good, and you can do this now, it's starting to fade away, but you can also do Blue Avians, David Wilcock, Gaia TV, a few of these, right? You're going to be presented with a page. None of that information is going to be negative. Maybe one or two articles are going to be, videos will show up about this in a negative fashion, have any kind of negative connotation at all, and that's only recent. You would have to go to the second and third and fourth page to encounter any of your guys' work, any of dark journalists, any of these people. Now, the reason that this is, or the way that this is being done, was through the SEO, search engine optimization tools, and flooding. So someone went to the trouble of creating a template mask and flooding the subject matter in the language within the search engines for YouTube and Google, such that it drove down any of the negative impressions, and they kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it with new material every time any negative thing about the blue space chicken cult showed up. And they were still doing it a couple of days ago. So who is doing this? And is it being done with officialdom's approval? Because this level of SEO is not easily done. This level of SEO usually gets the person that's doing it in great trouble with Google. Okay, they usually get their shit kicked out of them by Google.
Yeah.
So it's like, this level of coordinated, consistent spamming with the same templates, the same traits to it, the same byte code size. It's like, what's going on here? And so that level of the mystery really deepens it all. How deep does this go? Is this indeed an officialdom disinfo op to try and get the people away from the secret space program idea, because it's getting way too damn close?
Right. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's obviously like something being done intentionally from high up, but with the use of these inserted useful idiots. You know what I mean? I think that the people who are sort of like the Corey Goods and the David Wilcock, they think they're occupying one position when they're really they're occupying a different position.
Right.
And, like I agree that this is being done to take attention away from the serious aspects of this. And the way we look at it is secret space programs, multiple. I don't think there's not just one.
Sure.
So obviously we're dealing with, you know, what we've referred to like on the topsoil edge, the Catherine Austin Fitzes, the Joseph Farrells, people like that. You know, that's obviously, you know, and there's someone who I hope maybe you're aware of, and maybe you are because of the kind of work you do. But actually the person who we like that has done some of the best work on this and gets no attention is Sean Gautreaux. I don't know if you know who Sean Gautreaux is. He has a YouTube channel called Industrial Surrealism, and his series is called, yes, Who, What, Is Exercise. This person, Sean has documented more evidence of secret space programs than anybody has, and no one ever refers to his, I mean, really, we've had him on the show multiple times. Roxy Lopez has had him on. A few others have, you know, he's been on Clyde Lewis and some of these other slightly bigger shows, but they never let him get really deep into what he's doing. Right. So there's that end. But, and I would love to get your take on this. And this is the part that gets, I think this in some ways is even what the Corey Good nonsense is meant further to distract from. The mind control aspects of the secret space program, right? And the fact that those things, mind control, MK Ultra kind of things, are also tied into this. And we don't see any, you know, we speak about this a lot on the show. We speak to a lot of people who, you know, with, you know, are trying to understand their experiences. They're not coming forward with evidence and saying, I know for a fact this to be true.
Yeah.
People, there's a large group of people who have experiences that would seem to line up with having had something that they were tried, that they were
shit don't make sense.
Shit don't make sense. Shit don't make sense. And, you know, whether they went to space or whether they were mind controlled into thinking they went to space, you know, whatever.
And they can't say, and that I find legitimate. Okay.
Right.
I find that legitimate. Yes. But if you're up there saying it's definitively this way and so on, bullshit.
Right. And I think that's what the thing with Corey Good is really meant to, obviously we know that it's meant to detract from the the technological and military aspects of it. But this other thing where there's this increasing amount of people who are talking about these strange experiences they've had, and they don't want us coming together, talking to each other and figuring shit out. So they put someone like Corey Good out there to like make a mockery of this stuff and to make it so that people will not ever take the others seriously, who are not claiming blue chickens, who are not claiming sphere beings,
right.
who are claiming, who are, you know.
Well, the other side of this is that what has happened with Corey Good is that Corey Good was basically pulled out of a milieu inside of a forum at Project Avalon. He initially presented a rather good case for somebody who would have been involved in special programs, special access programs, some type of mind control, MK Ultra type thing. But what happened from there was how the narrative began to be honed once he transitioned out of Avalon. And there's a sequence to that. There's a handoff to different handlers. We detailed all of that in the course of the two interviews we did with Christine Anderson and the Ruiner, and also the documents that we put up, the 150 pages of redacted online activity by Corey. But the whole point was to begin to create a monolithic narrative that supplanted all the other narratives out there, and also brought into the mix a cult structure of belief and a money aspect. In other words, they basically have done what the televangelists, the modern era televangelists.
You hit it right there, Guy. Look, I mean, you're spot on. What we have to ask ourselves is, who is Constantine? Okay, because we've just lived through a secret version of the Council of Nicaea. All the Christians, 1,200 cults brought in, one single monolithic narrative out tied to money.
Yes. So my original Facebook post was rather simple. It wasn't crafted. It was me responding to Corey Good. And it was largely, this is the image of a cult.
Yeah.
Because when you look at it and you saw the semiotics, the triggers that were in it, all of the aspects, you suddenly realize this isn't your run-of-the-mill tent show UFO thing. There's something bigger below the surface of this.
This is social engineering. Okay.
Yes, it is. It's totally, yes.
And from my viewpoint, I see it in the language, of course. And so I see it, I'm out there doing battle in language land, right? And what someone's trying to do is they're trying to control the narrative by seizing and wrapping language in particular images.
Yeah.
And they do it, they're changing the context and changing the connotation of the words. And so they're trying to have, and that's why I deliberately choose the words I do. Those are my weapons, right? Blue avians, or, you know, giant space chickens. You know, okay, hey, I win the war, guys. You can try and be as upfront as you want, but if I start laughing at these giant blue space chickens, you know, other people are also going to see it that way, and you've lost that image.
That's right.
And so that's what they're trying to do, is to control this weird narrative around a whole set of language that all points back to the secret space programs, or the origin of them, and hidden history. And so I think that really what they're actually trying to control is the history aspect of it more than anything at the moment. But I don't know, I'm not going to say why. I don't answer why questions. It goes to intent, and I'm not one of the bad guys, so I don't know why they're trying to do this. But I am able to look at the language and see what the Corey Good stuff is doing, and it's really weird. This is why I was so pissed. Okay, because I have an emotional engine. This engine goes through and it reads words, and it makes assumptions, and it makes conclusions about the words it's reading based on my emotional quantifiers and qualifiers that I put together to those words, and it sums them up. And so it presents to me a summation in my overnights on the processing as to various different groups and the emotional values for these. And I started seeing, and I react to those emotional values to do my interpretation. No sense me trying to do an interpretation on an emotional value that basically no one's going to care about, right? So the hot topics are of, you know, earthquakes, or, you know, planet Nibiru and all of this kind of stuff. I can pick up real easy, and I know, okay, I can get in there because everybody's emotionally hot about it. I started seeing these emotional waves come up out of the context within my data sets, and couldn't figure out what it was, because I was deliberately screening out all of the Hollywood aspects of the Corey Good story, so I didn't even see it. I mean, I wasn't aware in the data that Corey Good was out there talking about these big blue space chickens for maybe a whole year after he'd done it. So it's like, whoa, what's going on? Then I realized that they were deliberately promulgating an emotional reaction, and maybe to do epigenetically, maybe mind control in that regard, to grab a particular component of the narrative to pull along a segment of the population. And it looked like from the narrative or from the language I was seeing, that they were doing it in such a way, in a manner, that they were trying to do what Amy Semple McPherson's handlers did, to create the larger mass movement and cult, to allow it to spread out, right?
Yeah.
And so it gave birth to all of this, started giving birth to all of these little sub-organizations. And whenever I see that, I get really suspicious. I got suspicious of Simon Parks for that same reason, right? Not only the same kind of bullshit stuff, but true, and true. Okay, I have ingested psychedelics, and I've had conversations with mantids. All right, so I know they exist. Do they exist in this material plane? I don't know. Are they his parents? I couldn't say, but it sure sounds far-fetched, and I'm not going to buy into it. And the fact that it's cult-like, with the reaching out, the umbrella.
Well, and here again, there's underlying character issues as well with Simon Parks. I don't even have to dispute this. We covered this last year with Simon Parks, that there are character issues, just as there are character issues within the camp of David Wilcock, Corey Good, Michael Salla, Guy MTV, and William Tompkins.
Okay. Yeah, but we got to be clear about that. We're all humans, right? We've all got character issues. We've all got crap in our past we don't want brought up, you know? Okay, so David Wilcock's first public appearance, he was a time traveler from the year 2072.
And then he was Edgar Cayce, and then he was...
No. Hey, I actually buy that. Okay, I actually buy the Edgar Cayce stuff, and here's why. Because I'm aware that there's actually a battle going on through time.
Yeah.
I'm aware that we reincarnate.
Yes.
And I'm aware that when we do reincarnate, we reincarnate and take the template that is our... when our mothers become pregnant, they are pregnant and producing a rather amorphous, generic human shape. Right. Our soul brings along, right? Our soul comes along and is ingested basically in the breath of the woman at the time she's of conception, and the soul impresses our body's shape on that amorphous mass. Yeah. And as we go through time, our soul collects all of this stuff from our DNA to carry with us through our death and our metempsychosis into our next life, so that we will have the experiences we need. The scars that are all over my body at this point are from previous lives and issues I hadn't resolved, right? Yeah. And that's the way this stuff works. So we're all totally damn flawed, and we're all working patterns that probably we should not.
Yeah, no,
right?
I agree with the way you just described that with, you know, like the soul sort of attracts to this amorphous blob. And yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with that. We talk about that. I don't know if you ever saw that episode of Fringe called Soul Magnet.
I didn't. No.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wouldn't use the term magnet because it's a little bit different than that, right? It's very much like a mold, and so our mold is the stuff we bring with us from the previous life,
Right.
that is impressed on our body that we have to decide to deal with, ignore, or decide not to deal with.
Okay.
And so those are basically the three choices: the fight, flight, or freeze. Right?
Yeah. No. Yeah. I like your description though. I'm with you on that. I just
Okay, and so that's what goes down on that part of it, though. Yeah.
So I have a quick question. We've brought this up before, but I want to ask you because you look into language. When you look at this whole phenomenon with the blue chickens, do you see the relationship to that this would be some new age playing out of Project Bluebird? Are you familiar with what Project Bluebird was? Right. So it was precursor to Artichoke and MK Ultra, and it was basically, you know, experiments conducted to create amnesia, new identities, hypnotic access codes, and new memories in the minds of experimental subjects. Could that be what this is about with this tighter group and then a larger group that you were speaking about? That this is some sort of, you know, version of that. And
it could be. I'd never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at it an entirely different layer. Okay.
Yeah.
I see it much plainer as a battle between Force A and Force B.
Right.
I can't figure out from what I'm seeing whether Force A is attempting to do this or not. That would certainly fit with what I'm seeing in terms of the attempt to control the narrative and the language.
Yeah.
And there's certainly an attempt to slice off language and allow them to control it. And so we see this with the recent Jimmy Church enforcing of the social parameters. So now, okay, let's be clear about this, all right? Bring me back to Jimmy Church in a minute, but here's the deal. This could be organic or this could be structured, and we can't tell looking at it from the outside. So this could be a military op. You could have had people like my father and all of these guys sitting around in a room planning this for weeks and writing all this shit down, picking out their characters, working out the strategy and all of that. Or it could be the happenstance that occurs all the time in life where one person's story triggers something in somebody else. They react a particular way because of the crap they're bringing from their previous life that they've got to go through now. They're attracted to the cult because they didn't deal with it when they were a Vestal Virgin in Rome, that kind of thing, right? And so they got to deal with it now. And so they're just these people are just taking advantage of all of the people that used to be the Vestal Virgins that didn't get their religion stuff done. Now, these people that are doing this, the sociopaths and the psychopaths, may not be sociopaths and psychopaths acting in and of that action. They may be directed, they may be consciously controlling their psychopathy in order to harvest these people, as Catherine Austin Fitts says, or they could be responding to their own patterns that they've just got to get out because they've been on the sociopathic path for years and years and years, or lifetime after lifetime and lifetime, and they just don't ever get it, right? And so that's what we've got to do. And so we have to understand that this is not something we can ascertain at this stage. It is wise to keep in mind that maybe it is all controlled and scripted, and there's a good playwright behind all of this. And that's when once you start thinking that, though, then you start asking why and who. And I don't usually go to that at this stage. So what got us off on that? What were we coming back to?
You wanted to come back to Jimmy Church, you said.
Okay, so Jimmy Church.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, so Jimmy Church recently did this thing, unity in the community. All right, that's tent revival language, right?
Totally.
That's you're free within the tent to be in our community, right? But if you step outside that tent, you step outside.
Well,
our
that's
community.
what Contact in the Desert was.
Yeah,
Contact
exactly.
in the Desert was, in fact, a tent revival meeting for ufology. And there was predictive language that I put out and that we put out months before the Contact in the Desert announcement. We were talking about conferences and the harvesting that goes on at conferences. This was
which is scary,
terrifying.
Which is, people don't understand, and I'm putting a show together to try and lay the narrative out because it's very difficult for people to track, especially because we're being blown constantly now with media and it's all fragmented. But this was not something that we just pulled out of our orifice. This was something that was an organic process with us talking about conferences, specifically UFO conferences, and specifically the harvesting operations that go on, concerted by agency intelligence operatives, cult groups, satanic ritual groups, all of these.
And why? And why? It's because you're temporal sensitive and you can feel it coming months in
Yeah.
advance.
And that's, yeah, and so
Yeah.
it's not that much. Again, you know, we work on the same planes. You have a science to this, whereas we're just sort of barometers out there that pick these things up. But it's the same discipline of language. And I thought it was interesting that the term infiltration of the UFO communities was used specifically by Jimmy Church, when in fact that was the language that came out in the post that I put onto Facebook
That started
on
some of
April
this stuff.
23rd.
Yeah.
The exact scene, the alt media and UFO scene is now fully co-opted. It's different word, but it means relatively the same thing.
Got to control that language. Got to cycle it up. You know, it's got to be ours, right?
Right.
And so we claim it, and that's how we do it. Yeah.
We appropriate. And by appropriating it, we then control the narrative. That's what this really is about. This isn't a pissing contest between us, them. I don't care.
No. Hang on. I'm pissed. Okay.
Okay. Well, you have a right to be pissed.
They caused me a lot of work,
Yes.
and I've got to go back and tune my lexicon because they were bubbling out emotions that caused me to tune the lexicon to those emotions. Now I got to undo that because some of my work went wonky because I was working for 18 months trying to get them out of the system and I didn't know. So yes, I'm extremely irritated.
Well, and it might be useful to explain because we assume that, and I've heard you explain this at least twice now, but I won't assume for the purposes of this audience that they know exactly what you're talking about. That in fact, when you discovered this showing up, and I'll let you kind of lace it from there because you did something very clever that sort of busted them.
Yeah, I sort of thought when I first started seeing this, I kind of wondered what was going on because ever since 2001, I've been paranoid that my system could be infiltrated itself or manipulated by intrusion of language out into the internet in a bot fashion. And actually, I was able to discover in 2005 the origination of the first bots that were writing articles and then being read by news anchors. And it was 100% software creation of headlines. And so it was like, wow, they're really doing this stuff. And so I was very concerned about this. I come across these rising emotional tones I have to start reacting to. I wonder basically what's going on. It's around specific language, around specific sites within the language. And so I decided, okay, it appeared to be an echo of some of the stuff I was writing, but a slightly different echo. As we say, a constrained, controlled version of the language I was putting out. And I was trying, we have this thing called MOM, model of model space. Very first time I put out a big prediction, which was about 9/11, the next time I did a run, it just came back with nothing but my own words and I had to throw it all out, start all over again because I needed to isolate my own crap that was then being, spewed around in the internet and regurgitated. So I couldn't have those memes or that stuff intrude. I had to be able to figure out a way to do it. I came up with this thing I called MOM, which is model of model space, where I take all of the stuff I write, put it into these blobs that are easily searched in a binary fashion, or excuse me, in hexadecimal fashion, stuff them into a database, and with some triggers and so forth, and some stored procedures, and let it work. And it tells the spiders, no, you can't bring that data back. It's most likely some of his own stuff going. Now, of course, as I've gotten more presence, I've had to have MOM get bigger and bigger, and it takes more of the processing. It's just this huge pain in the ass. So I resented these blue chicken dudes, right? Because they were causing me a lot of work. I didn't know it was the blue chicken guys because I wasn't looking at the language that way. I would get a word, and I would see heightened emotions around the word that I would try and tune into because I know something was happening, right? Why, for instance, should Antarctica pop up? And why should it have a sudden heightened emotion that would raise it from a 7 in my scale to a 10 point something? It's like, ooh, something's coming out there, right? And so I would write about this in one of my reports. And then the next month, when I'm doing the processing for the next month, it went from, 10.4 up to 12.3. And it's like, wow, we're getting close. Something's really happening here. And what was going on was the blue chicken guys were reading my reports, and it finally dawned on me, it is an echo, but it's a filtered echo. That someone was trying to control the narrative or piggyback off of the words I was using. And I couldn't figure out why, for one reason, because the stuff they were picking up on was all the woo-woo stuff. It wasn't any of the economic stuff I figured would be the target. And so it got to be kind of a pain. And so I ended up having to make some experiments. And I made some experiments. I put I did 3 experiments over the course of 6 months, and I put in 3 different memes that I then saw replicated in the blue chicken cult. And so it came back to me, okay, somebody in there is reading and writing their script off of the Space Goat Farts section of my reports. And I could alter, I actually was able to alter the flow in Gaia on how long and how voluminous I put into my Space Goat Farts section in a report. That next month, Corey Good and Gaia and stuff, flat as hell.
Wow.
So it's just kind of funny, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the ideas that he was promulgating were mine. Okay. I'm saying that I put in specific linguistic triggers to cause specific actions, and I can now plot those actions and tell you, on this month I did this, and if we go and look at Gaiam TV for the next subsequent couple of months, you're going to see this effect in it. And sure enough, lo and behold, and you can see my reports out a month ahead, 2 months ahead of that effect showing up in the Corey Good story.
Yeah. Wow.
What do I do with it? What do I do with it though, right? It's just a claim. It's as bold a claim as Corey's claim that he got sucked up into this weird blue egg and flown to Antarctica, right? I can substantiate mine.
Right. Yeah.
But again, it's sort of like conjecture that they're actually doing that from my words, even though you can see the words transmit.
Yeah.
And, you know, they weren't using those words 2 months before. They weren't talking about the subjects 2 months before.
Yeah, it's bad. You're the kind of tricky bastard that they didn't, you know, they thought that
Yeah.
they'd steal your work
why.
and then not count on that you'd use it to figure them out. So yeah.
Well, here's why too. Here's what really irritated me, okay? Because Antarctica is important. When I find stuff show up in the data, I don't just assume that it's going to be accurate or anything, because humans are goofy bastards and they'll get all whipped up about stuff that is absolutely false and delusional. So I go and do whatever research is necessary to make me feel comfortable that by writing it in this report, I'm not going to mislead people. Now, I don't mind coming across looking like an old wild ass bald guy out in the woods. All right, this is who cares? Who cares? But I certainly don't want to cause. I follow a ahimsa. All right, I'm a yogi. Do no harm.
Yeah.
So my very first principle is do no harm. And so I want to make sure that the crap I put in the reports is not going to cause a reaction and behavior that would cause blowback that way. And so one of the things I did was I investigated Antarctica. And I mean, I got serious about that. I spent hours crawling on every single satellite photo I could get, analyzing what's going on down there. And I was shocked, absolutely shocked. Being a techie and having the spiders at my disposal, I sent them out looking in all the languages I could find that are within our system for words about jobs in Antarctica for this year and last year. And I discovered all kinds of solid, real evidence, you know, like Gary McKinnon kind of evidence, right? That something's happening down in Antarctica. You know, there's 900 more jobs now in Antarctica being offered than there were 2 months ago. They're hiring physical therapists in Antarctica, you know. They've got
people are going to have stiff knees when they come out of being frozen for so many millennia, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those stasis fields. Oh, it's a bitch, you know. Got to have a massage. But anyway, something's going on though. See, that's the problem. That's what really pissed me off about these guys was they were polluting something that I found personally meaningful. Because, you know, when disclosure comes, I don't think it's going to come as we expect, right? Yeah. And the disclosure I care about is more about us.
Yep.
And if we can say, all right, guys, humanity was created by an aquatic species about 200 million years ago. If we can say something along those lines and know with a definitive level of surety that this is the case, then a lot of the bullshit between us goes away. It don't matter if you're black, green, blue, white. It doesn't matter what color you are, right? We've all got this thing that we need to recover, which is us. And that's what we're all fighting about continuously, is we don't know what us is. And once we get that straight, hey, universe is ours. We can go out and kick ass.
Absolutely. I'm totally
so this is why I'm pissed at these blue chicken guys, right? This is why I'm at war with them.
They're really distracting people from finding the answers within themselves. They're really
Well, okay, all right. I'm not that altruistic. All right, they pissed me off because they polluted my data stream.
No, they polluted your idea stream, but what you just said is that the important information is about us, not about this other stuff. So yes.
And that really irritates me too, by the way. All right, we get everything from Billy Meyer onward. As soon as the space aliens show up here, what do they talk about? Not trade, not, hey, you know, what kind of a being are you? None of that. No, let's get into spirituality. let's create us a religion. Let's talk about,
Right.
you know, the great Palladian or Pajorian Jesus that came back whenever and blah, blah, blah. Or this giant blue space chickens that are somehow, you know, and so I resent, because I'm a Taoist, because I'm a yogi, because I am looking deep into myself to find out what the hell I am.
Yes,
I resent someone from the outside trying to tell me what I am. And it's like,
that was the other point. That was the other point of this. When you go on to the websites and you look and it says the Blue Avians have a message for you, and then it kind of talks down to you. It's like, oh, you need to forgive yourself and forgive others and understand these warnings were given 2 times before, and when they were ignored, civilization was destroyed. So now you've got a prophet. You've got an augur of dark prophecies reliant on an external force that you need to believe in order to reflect back to yourself the inherent good that we're supposed to find in ourselves in the first place as both individuals and a race. I resent that.
That is, so you should have fear. By the way, you've got to be afraid.
Yes,
there's fear. There's fear.
There's fear because only 400,000 of us are going to make it to whatever.
Well, yeah, and even beyond that, though, there's that fear of, oh my God, it's on me. I've got to do this, you know?
Yeah.
So, and they put all that work on you and stuff. It's like David Wilcock. There was this conference with Bill Ryan in Ecuador, or some weird place, right? Way the hell back when. And aside, a little snippet came to my attention, and it was this woman saying, blah, 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 ascension, blah, 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 David Wilcock, blah, 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 I've been doing the work. And it's like, well, wait a second, woman. I've been a yogi. I've been doing yoga since I was 11, and I'm talking serious stuff, not just the asanas, right? I've been doing martial arts for 30 plus years. That's work. And you don't ascend from any of this stuff. And by the way, what do you think ascension is? That you're going to float off with wings? I mean, the descriptions of these things are very
rapture.
Vague. Exactly. Rapture-like and all of this kind of stuff, and vague as hell, but yet somehow there's work involved. There's a reward system. It's all structured. It's hierarchical. It's entirely structured mind control. And here it is coming out of somebody who's professing, David Wilcock, to be the great liberator or to bring us the great liberator. So is he the Moses in this play? I don't know, you know?
Sure feels like it.
Yeah. It's really scary. It's really scary.
I agree.
There's a coterie of control that goes on in this entire media circus. And I've been 7 years on this, of exposing this network of people. Now, funny, they're using the same language now. They're reflecting all this language back again. They've been blitzing my YouTube channels with messages from Sphere Being Alliance, offering me to come over to their side before it's too late. That's the language they're giving me now. This is cult-like activity, and I'm documenting it. I'm recording the language. But you have had the usurpation of the meme, the hijacking of this entire initial warning about Corey Good, whereby then Bill Ryan used my post to escalate his argument, which then advanced out onto the 3-hour interview with the dark journalist, which now gave Bill Ryan the seeming appearance of being in control of a narrative that Bill Ryan lost control of
years ago.
Three years ago, at least.
Right. And it's not church enforcing all this is the social enforcer.
Exactly.
You've got to see it inside the tent. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm the person that decides unity in the
unity.
Community. And, You know, like I've been there, dude. I lived in the South. I understand passive aggressive control mechanisms.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, hey, you know, you use this shit to control the slaves. I've seen the white people in the South who had natively internalized it, use it on black people all of my life. Because I was raised in Alaska, right? I didn't come down to the lower 48 until I was into my awareness stage of about 7 or 8. And so, and we're plopped into the civil rights movement in the 60s or 50s, and it's like, wait a second, this shit don't add up, you know? These black people, they're nice guys. I'm going over and sit in the porch every weekend. We have, you know, good food, and yet, you know, they've got to be treated this way. This don't make any sense at all. And so none of it, you know, all the non sequiturs. So I started paying attention to language. And of course, I'm bringing that from my previous existence, undoubtedly, whoever the hell I was then, which gets us back to David Wilcock and the war through time. Obama being able to see himself in the statuary from Egypt. They're really into this, by the way, okay? Let me tell you something. I've got a friend of mine. All right, so my father was a very decorated soldier. He was an artist. He never should have been a soldier, but he was a very decorated soldier. Battlefield commission in Korea, saved 100 and some odd people leading them the hell away from getting themselves destroyed, became an officer, and went through this entire thing, did 3 tours in Nam. One of the tours in Nam he did with this guy. We'll call him Mars, Colonel Mars, okay? And he saved Colonel Mars' life twice. Now, he wasn't a colonel at that time. The guy was a captain, and my dad was he was a colonel. And at the time that he saved this guy's life twice. And so Mars always felt that he owed our family. And so years later, when I'm doing telephony work, I run into Mars. It's like, wait a second, you work here? Now, Mars is this very imposing fellow. He cashiered out of the military as a general. The completely shaved head, no eyebrows kind of look, right? And he looks like Joe Rogan on a real serious good day. And, and he walks around like that, right? And so he's a good guy, though, I sort of thought. But he was working for a subcontractor for the military, all right? And so I don't know why I got onto this, but this guy and the subcontractors, I know. Okay, so this guy's really interesting. He sort of took a liking to me. We're in the same building. Time passes. He's working for a subcontractor for the military that gets involved with, of all things, Abu Ghraib. They supplied the people that went to work that were the torturers at that prison and in the Iraq and stuff. This particular subcontracting outfit that Colonel Marr worked for, and they had to change their name and do stuff. After they changed their name and morphed, they were given a weird assignment, which I became aware of. That weird assignment was war through time. Okay. And what they were doing was scanning with computers, with facial recognition software, all kinds of historical paintings, photos of statues and stuff. If they heard about a statue of a human that had historical importance that they did not have a photo of, they paid somebody to go and get that photo if they had to put that guy on a plane and get him there. And they got these photos and were digitally analyzing these things. And they were hunting for
people look like them.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they were trying to plot this, and there's something going on. And so they weren't looking for people that looked like Obama, right? But they were looking for all these people that looked like other people so in other words, I know from my own enlightenment experience that when you get this enlightenment flash, you're given what's known as your universal face. It's a view of it.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can think of seeing your universal face as sort of a weird image of yourself on a sphere. And there's a line of spheres going off infinitely that way and infinitely that way. And it's this big giant cube. So no matter where you look, you see your face on these spheres in space in between.
Yeah.
Right? Only your face is different. And it's not quite the same. And you see you have different scars, different hair patterns, all, but you know it's you.
Yeah.
And it's this weird kind of a thing. And so you see your universal face and you know a couple of things. You live many times.
Yep.
That your soul makes you look, I'll be looking like this in my next life. I'm going to be an old bald guy in my next life at age 17, just like I was this life. So it impresses you over and over and over again. And so you take this with you. And so Obama probably was that son of a bitch from Egypt, right?
Yeah.
At that time. And your existence, the space of time between the existences within the materium where we are now, where matter exists, might be thousands of years.
Yeah.
But these guys, the subcontractor outfit, was tasked with finding instances of people that looked like themselves in a previous life that was recorded historically. And there's nuances in it that I discussed with Colonel Mars, right? And one of the nuances is, of course, if you're an ancient historical person and you're serious about it and you've got power, you have your image recorded for your next incarnation to show yourself that you existed, because you know that this will occur at some point, that in your next incarnation, you'll be able to look backwards, so to speak, and see what's going on and get that flash and recover this level of knowledge to be able to actively use it in this life. And hopefully be able to do this over and over and over again, which is part of this entire control program that they're trying to do since we've been into this period of time. And they're trying to augment it with machinery now, including CERN, because they don't quite grasp what's going on. They think time is malleable and you can actually take somebody and shove them through time. Okay. So that kind of stuff doesn't happen. You can't do that. I can explain why I don't think that's the case. I can explain why I think Basiago is a great guy, and he was the first person ever to come to the conclusion that there was life on Mars based on these photographs, and he's one smart son of a bitch. he's a lawyer, and so that kind of irritates people.
Yeah.
that aside,
Irritates me, right? Yeah.
right. But he believes it. Okay,
Yeah.
he's 100% facts. He's 100% truthful.
Yes.
I don't accept the facts because of how I think about energy.
I agree.
I don't know what happened to him, but he believes what he's saying.
That's exactly what I think. Yeah.
Well, we have theories about why he believes that and why it's believable and why he's truthful in spite of the fact that it does not fit in to our theories about the actual mechanics of the whole thing.
Correct.
And that goes it goes into simulations and mind control programs and all the things that we bounce around all the time because, quite frankly, we want to know about this shit too because we kind of are bumped up against it ourselves.
Yeah.
Exactly. You get an hour and a half of missing time and you say, what the hell's going on here?
You got a hell of a lot more than that.
A lot more than an hour and a half.
Well, no. But see, I mean, just awareness that you've lost time.
Exactly.
If you're a yogi, one of the things you do is and especially if you've gone through the psychedelic immersions that I have, then you get to understand what you are at a level that is very difficult for people to trick. I admit to being susceptible to passive aggressive language because it usually passes over me. I just take everybody at face value. And then later on, it's like, oh no, you were a nasty son of a bitch. And I go back and address it then just to get it out of my system. You know, just because you put it into my system, I'm going to give it back to you. And I don't care about your convenience that, my giving you your passive aggressive stuff back again. But so Jimmy Church, he's a passive aggressive bastard, and I've got issues with him, right?
Exactly.
He's the enforcer. He's the sergeant at arms.
And
he's
of course,
the guy
his last name is Church.
Exactly. I was just going to say, he's the guy at the tent door that brings in the shills, that sends them down to get healed, you know, that kind of thing. And he's the social enforcer. Now, the kind of person I am, I resent social enforcement. I hate it, and I'm not going to take it. That's why I'm a martial artist, because I have the ability as a martial artist to not have to take it and to recognize it. And so Jimmy Church and his unity in the community, boy, set that spine going right off, you know. It's like, oh, Jimmy, let's do some talking here, boy. This is no good. You can't be doing that stuff. And in fact, I really resent it because it's just the same kind of stuff you see with these anti-fat. You know, it's like you're not allowed to say anything, right? You're a racist white guy, so you can't say anything. Your words are not pertinent. And so it's the same tactic, and it's the social control cohesion stuff that really irritates the hell out of me.
The constraint of language that, minimizing the amount of words you can say, therefore the experiences you can have, and yes, absolutely.
And I want it to be the other way. Right?
Yeah.
I want everybody to be able to say exactly. And so I can sit here and say that Bajyago, you know, I'll sit down with him and chat all the time, and I'll tell him to his face, guy, I can't accept this, and here's why. But I don't think you're lying. I just think, you know. But on the other hand, I'll sit down and I'll tell Corey Good, man, you're deep into some damn lies here, dude. You got to get out before this ends badly. You know, we've just had an instance of that. I mean, you know, Sean David Morton. You know about this.
Sean David Morton was actually broadcasting live from his car while he's out.
A fugitive.
He's a fugitive. This afternoon, which is
what happened with Sean David Morton? I didn't.
He was convicted. He's looking at 350 years in prison.
No, it was 87. It was 87 months.
87 years. Okay.
Wasn't this the same thing as a few years ago? They were talking about this with him. I feel like I've heard.
Yeah, but see, there's a thing. He's been doing this pattern of serial fraud for years and getting away with it. Never had it, brought up. Then it got brought up with the SEC. He couldn't get out of it. They slapped him with an $11 million fine. He tried to finagle his way out of a bankruptcy. With a bankruptcy, the judge says, "No, you can't declare bankruptcy. You've been hauling cash out of the bank like mad in sacks. We know you've got hidden assets." And so they disregarded that. And so he tried to pull a scam on the IRS in order to get the money to pay off the SEC. So, it's this pattern stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you bring up the Amy Semple McPherson thing. And that's what really has me scared because, I don't want to sit here. It really bugged me. I mean, it really annoyed me that Sean was criminal. Okay. And it really annoyed me that he wasn't a stand-up guy to just stay, if he shouldn't have gotten his wife involved, blah, blah, blah. And he should have just, in my opinion, dealt with his pattern now rather than perpetuate it into his next life. That's just my feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So, but I'm saddened. I'm emotionally racked on this because I like the energy that is Sean David Morton. Okay. All of his lies, all of his bullshit, all of that. I like the guy. There's an emotional response in me to something in him. Now, I don't have that with Corey Good, but I don't want to see Corey Good go down this path because he's going to end up dead. He's going to be the sacrificial lamb in this thing.
You just
Yep.
You just, you know, that's been the underlying concern, and it's the kind of thing that I've tried to avoid saying explicitly, but implying it
Why,
in the
dude? Get out
background,
there and say
because
it.
because quite honestly, there is a pattern out there that's occurred over the last 8 years where we've seen this. It's not lost on me that last year at this time we lost another guy who was prominent in the community, Max Spears. Max Spears was taken out. Max Spears was taken out as a means to rotate in the next guy. And that pattern has repeated before in this media arena. And I don't want, and I have said this, this is different.
Yeah, because they've got him, you know, they've got
this
this
is a
dude
much
cast in
bigger
the Jesus
game.
role.
Yeah.
This is a much bigger game.
Yeah, big money involved. And there's, I love words, right? And I got a lot of friends that give me words, and I like these guys. They're Irish, you know, all over the planets, you know, Sanskrit fellows, you know, these kind of guys. But the Irish have got some really interesting words, you know, coming from the Celts. And they've got this saying, Tir Nasar, okay, means land of the free. And if you actually look at it, Tir, Terra, earth, Na, no, Sar, S-A-R, reptile, okay?
Yeah.
Ireland was the land of the free. Its name is Tir Nasar in their original language, and it meant we've kicked out the lizards.
Reptile,
right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, now what do we have? Okay, we have ages pass. What were the ages that we passed through? The age we passed through prior to the current age of Pisces was the age of the ram, right? Okay, the age of the lizard came before the age of the ram. And now who's our key background player here? Ramsar.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
Goat lizard, the goat lizard. Oh,
Yeah.
so he's the goat lizard in this play, right?
Very interesting, very good.
And of course, what's he do? He decorates his body. The Bahomet, you know, the goat.
Yeah.
That was a tattooed being. Okay, it was one of the first representations of the gods outside of the Sanskrit, outside of the Aryan cultures. It was one of the first representations of the gods with tattoos. And so here we are again with Ramsar, and you got the space aliens with the Bahomet hand gestures,
very good.
all the symbology.
Very good.
And Ramsar. So I like the language, right? I love these Irish guys, you know. Cut to the quick there, and it's like, oh yeah, you know, something's going on there, and we name ourselves for our roles on this planet.
Yes.
All right.
So is Ramsar
just because it's an accident?
Is Ramsar the Judas goat here?
No, see, there's the thing. I don't think so, because of the nature of what's going on and the way this thing is structured. I think that's a very powerful player. Okay, I think that powerful player may not recognize his own role and may end up being cast in a depreciating role. But I don't think that person is going to end up being sacrificial. I think there's power in that individual.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So there's somebody. Sobering. I mean, I'd go on up and I'd kick Corey good in the ass, right? And I'd say to him, you know, this is assault. If you want to haul me into court, that'd be fine. You know, well, let's go and deal with it. But Ramsar, I wouldn't do that. Okay. If you contend with that being, only one of you is going to come out.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
Well, we leave that to you, the viewer, to chew on, and that warning sits out there to all involved that you are playing with strange fire. So
yeah,
very interesting dynamics. We're kind of winding the corner here on the show, and I want to give everybody, you know, the opportunity to kind of air any last words, last thoughts, last concepts. Emily, did you have anything else you wanted to cover?
No, I just wanted to tell Clif, thank you all. I appreciate all your work, all the information you put out that help us to understand what's going on and where we're at. I love all of that. But the thing I love most about you is the spirit with which you do this. You're not looking to you're not looking for saviors or someone else to provide the answers. You see a problem and you find creative and interesting ways to try and seek the solution for them. And then you share those methods with all of us. And I love your energy and your spirit. And thank you so much for all you do for our community.
Sure.
Well,
thank you much. I think you guys are just great too, you know.
Yes.
When I'm sitting here programming or writing code and stuff, I don't watch. I put in the headphones and listen. And like I say, the work you do with Bajyago and and these other individuals really top notch, you know. And I love the kick-ass CJ Chanter stuff, right? So, you know, get into some deep thinking there. These are individuals that you bring on that actually do think, and it's kind of rare.
Yeah.
That's what we aspire to do. We want people to think, we want them to feel, and we want them to extend themselves, because I think that's the only way humans prosper, is when they push themselves to the limits. So folks, you can find you, to tell people where they can find you, tell them about the reports.
Well, I've had to slip into just doing cryptocurrency reports recently, because I want to help as many people as I can during this particular time, right? I'm very time sensitive, very temporal like you. It's a time when we're making a transition. The actual global reset is here. The monetary reset is here. It's not Nasara. It's none of that crap. It's cryptocurrencies. We can get into it now. People will make great fortunes with no great crimes. And so I'm only doing cryptocurrencies during the next few months. It also relates to the fact that I've got to tune the lexicon because of Corey Good and his bullshit. And I ended up with a wrist injury due to my dogs and running into a herd of deer over at Evergreen State College. I was walking the dogs over there. We came on this herd of deer. Suddenly the dogs were both on one arm. They've got 8 legs and 200 pounds. And
lot of weird stuff going on at Evergreen College these days.
Oh boy, let me tell you about
other animals.
Yeah, hey, I was told by one of the locals here that students had put up placards, and I saw it, sheets of paper saying that walking your dogs on campus was racist. And then you would be confronted, and there was what'd they say? Not confiscation, but there would be something. And the word I read at the time was like a mugging, and it's like, dude, you come anywhere near me, and I'm gonna tell my dogs to eat your nads.
Right, like pick them like chopper sick balls, right?
Yeah, you know, so yeah, it's weird over there. The energies, you know, you know, and it's all concentrating, and the weather is weird. We're all suffering, and it's going to get stranger. We're going to get to the point where we've got to maybe live in caves and stick sticks out. It's going to be a whole big rigmarole.
Well, all I can say is we discussed a lot, and I thought it was kind of a unique conversation the whole way around. But we certainly didn't cover all the things that I would have loved to have talked about. So we invite you back again at your convenience and ours to cover some more ground, because the crypto thing is going to evolve rapidly. And I suspect some other things like SSP and the breakaway civilization in Antarctica are going to get interestinger and interestinger as time goes by here. So thank you so much, Clif High, for coming on. And thank all of you out there for tuning in to the channel, offplanetradio.com. I'm Randy Moggins with Emily Moyer and our very special guest, Clif High. The truth is out there. It's inside you. Now go find it.